Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to True Sight, a very special episode of True Sight. If you're like me, you've spent the entire day waiting for Shanghai to happen. Damn Shanghai and its time zones, but here we are 1 hour away from the beginning of the Shanghai Major, and I'm extremely excited to have you here joining me to break down the predictions to make sure you nail your compendium predictions, assuming they haven't already locked, is two of the foremost analysts in DOTA and Noxville. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
I wanted to know. I wondered which direction you were going with that, but I'm great.
Top analyst and Cinderin.
Top men.
Nine international winners in RTZ, I believe, was the headline of Star Ladder last night. But obviously, Nahaz, Noxville and Grant will be joining us to break down the predictions. Guys, seriously though, how are you doing tonight? How are you excited about the major coming in just a mere 52 minutes?
Yeah, I didn't realize it was gonna it happened today. I was at work and I went to Gosu Gamers and I was like, oh. It's happening. Hey, all right. I thought it was in the weekend. I was like, oh, that's even better. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yep, plenty of games to go. If you guys are just gonna awkwardly sit there, I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, what's going on? Come on, dude.
I was hoping for a down the line thing, like you just naturally just fill it in, just give me your life story, but sadly that's not what we're gonna do. Well, obviously we're not here to talk about your fucking day job or whatever you do outside of Dota. We're here to talk about the Dota Major itself. Now, before we get started into the meat and potatoes, before we get talking about who's gonna win a bunch of money or whatever, who gives a shit, we need to talk about the important stuff. And that is obviously the compendium predictions. Gentlemen, you guys have mulled over these compendium predictions quite a bit in the past week. Yeah, how confident are you feeling in your current breakdown in your own compendiums?
Pretty confident. Nox and I did a video a couple nights ago. You can catch it on YouTube. It's a special edition of my show, Stats Don't Lie, and I think we're pretty confident in our picks.
If I don't lose to Melini, I'll be happy. I haven't lost them yet so far in all the compendiums since. So
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I'm undervaluing every single Chinese team player since everyone's saying eHome's going to do good, and I don't think they are at all. But besides that, it looks good.
My favorite of the list that came out of Arteezy putting Jackie Mao for every single player, putting Team Secret. Those were my favorite ones. But let's get serious just here for a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the options and what you guys picked for your compendiums. We'll try not to hit every single one of them, otherwise we'll be here all night. But let's hit the very beginning. What is going to be the most picked hero at Shanghai?
Vengeful Spirit, slam dunk.
You really think it's going to be Vengeful Spirit? It's not going to be.
I think it was all of the numbers to me. It was down to Vengeful Spirit and Invoker, and bye Invoker.
yeah, I think the one problem is that all of our predictions are based off previous data, and
sure,
as we see with majors, there's always some sort of tournament meta shift. Xiao put down. I was actually looking today at the list of all of the people who put down stuff. Xiao put Witch Doctor. And that actually makes a really, really large amount of sense. I think that Witch Doctors could very well be the pick, but
because he won't ever be banned. I think the fact you have to pick a hero that isn't gonna be first banned, and I think Venge will get banned a bit more than people think. That's why.
Well, I think that's my only doubt. Right? Is with Invoker just getting nerfed into the ground, that's one more hero that you don't have to ban. And so Earth Spirit's already been getting banned first phase. Lone Druid's already been getting banned consistently first phase. So you're going to have a couple of the heroes that have been showing up a lot that start to get banned first phase a little bit more often. And I worry Vengeful Spirit might be one of those. But I still think she had been so good all patch and teams had refused to ban her thus far. I still think that's the pick.
Yeah,
the thing is, Vengeful... Sorry, Karen.
No, you're good, young man.
Okay. I was just going to say Vengeful Spirit's a very versatile hero. And Witch Doctor is too, but not to the same extent that Vengeful Spirit is. Vengeful can support, can duel, aggro offlane, can roam, probably can't mid very well, but yeah, I think that Witch Doctor is definitely a support, but can be aggressive and defensive, so versatile in a different way.
Yeah, and it's a decent carry hero too. I mean, we saw Ad Venom played it really good today in the We Play tournament.
Yeah. So the thing is also with Witch Doctor is that teams we've seen almost always draft first phase. If there's no OP heroes left in the pool for them to snag, they very, very commonly go for one core and one support. And if you're picking a support, you don't want to have to, as your first pick or second pick of the tournament, of the draft rather, decide whether you're going to go for a very defensive or aggressive draft. So versatile heroes always do very well, and that's why Venge and Witch Doctor are excellent picks in that regard.
Yeah,
you go. Sorry, go ahead, Grant. You finish.
No, I was just saying I got Beastmaster picked for mine. I think he's gonna be like, just the Deathball meta is still there. Maybe I've been watching too much North American Dota, but that hero is never banned. But it's literally first picked every game. Even Elite Wolves versus Complexity, every game it was first picked by each team.
Yeah, when you're talking about flexibility, Beastmaster is a hero that I actually think is an interesting and a pretty good choice that I hadn't thought about, just because he's one of those heroes that can serve in either the core or the greedy 4-position role. And if you see like Tusk is another good example of a hero that fits that category that got picked a lot at Frankfurt. I still think there aren't necessarily enough teams out there that run Beastmaster regularly, but it's honestly, it's of the set of heroes that I didn't really consider seriously, Beastmaster is one that, yeah, it wouldn't completely shock me.
We've seen a lot of drafts where people sort of took over the safe lane with the Beastmaster because he's able to harass from afar, even though he's a melee champion because of the boar.
Yeah, and he's
Did
the one
you
hero.
say melee champion?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
It's a fun.
Pull the plug. We're done here.
It's good because Beastmaster actually is a champion in lore, so you can get away with it here.
Yeah, well, of course, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Good save, Grant. I like that.
Thank you for picking me up, fellas. Well, let's move on to the next one before we get too far down the rabbit hole. You touched on my favorite hot button topic right now, and that's the most banned hero. It sounds like it's pretty unanimous that it's going to be Earth Spirit. What do you do about this hero?
Ban it.
Ban it. I actually don't have it banned because I don't know. I actually don't know why. Maybe I should change it. I put IO just because I think in major.
That's the no. Don't change it because it's like I'd say like 65-35. Like IO is not a bad pick there at all.
I just think because people wouldn't in majors, like you'll see in these like smaller tournaments, BTS Americas, BTS Europe, you'll see people like not pick or ban it. But then when they're playing for like $500,000, they fall back on what they know, and I just assume after day.
Grant froze. He's giving us the high five position. Well, it sounds like he's.
That's very much how I see Grant. Here you go.
Yeah, he's just like this, like just giving us a high five in Skype.
Honestly, the big thing, right? The biggest difference in the last 3-6 months or so between the tier 1 and the tier 2 teams is that it's very. As a tier 1 team, it's very, very costly to not run a particular hero at all. Like, it's very, very unusual. EG, for example, IO is pretty much the only one of the top heroes that they absolutely will not run.
Yeah, why do you think they stay away from that so much? I mean, especially because we've seen people like Crit do incredible things, like game-changing things with IO.
It's just the way that it just doesn't fit their game plan. It's very, very weak in the laning phase, and it doesn't really... it's not really compatible with the way that they like to win games. They like to win games by being more efficient at resource accumulation than the opponent. And IO is not really going to help you with that.
The problem with IO is also you need a dedicated player who knows how to play the hero, and we have all of the best IO players in the world going to be.
I've heard that before. I don't believe if Peter or Clinton wanted to learn IO, they would be a very, very good IO player within not very long.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's Karaki,
it's their
there's
team
EGM, there's so many, there's MMY, there's even Chuan. There's very, very many excellent IO players who have played it before, and it adds a new dimension. I mean, IO is by far the most banned, first phase banned hero this patch.
Oh yeah.
Followed by Invoker, ES, Lone Druid, Chen. So I mean,
and that's because it's just certain teams you have to ban it against, and certain teams just don't want to deal with it.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's exactly as Grant was saying, that depending on the region and the teams involved, you'll see IO be first ban every game, or you'll see it just get through the draft entirely.
Yeah, and it seems like there are teams that very specifically want to run it for their playstyle. I mean, one of the things that I've said about OG in the past is that OG likes to live in chaos, and I feel like Io is a good hero for helping bail you out of chaos. You know, he will outlast the tower hits and the chip damage and the orb of venom damage just long enough to get you that kill in a chaotic situation and then get you out, won't he? Want to move on to the next prediction, and one of the ones that I think is probably one of the hardest to pick, and that's the lowest death average. Now, this is interesting to me because
I actually think that's not. I don't think that's that bad.
Really?
Actually. Yeah, I think you look at, for that category, you look at carry position heroes that are split pushing and or elusive. I actually think it's going to be more fling and not particularly close in that category.
Is that,
yeah, there we
welcome
go.
back,
Yeah.
Grant. The chat was treated to your Skype icon.
Oh, yeah, I should probably change that one.
Maybe when you have time. But we're talking about the hero with the least deaths at the tournament. Nahaz, go ahead.
Yeah.
There we
Will you put? Oh yeah, here we go. Welcome back.
There
I
we
think the
go.
best Twitch comment was, "Did Walmart's Wi-Fi die?" I mean, Noah's.
I like that.
I'm not at work right now. How does that make sense, you idiot?
Yeah.
So most banned Earth Spirit IO, and that's all I missed.
Yeah.
Lone
Now we're talking about
Druid is the other
lowest
one that
deaths.
you talk about for fewest deaths. But I think that I think that Lone Druid is going to be run a little bit too often in the off lane in this tournament to be a serious contender in that category.
Fair enough, Noxville. Your thoughts on the hero with the least deaths this tournament?
Oh no. I put Morphling down and I just carried on looking at the other ones. 750 points is also a lot of points for something that is actually pretty easy compared to some of the others.
Yep.
That give you a lot less. So, thanks, Bruno.
Yeah. I got Ember Spirit. I think Ember Spirit's just too good of a carry. You have to farm well. You're not going to die early because of your skills, and then late game you just have free everywhere.
No, actually,
But do you think we're gonna see-
it's a good pick, but that's not the right reasoning. When Ember dies a lot, it's because he gets absolutely crapped on mid. Like the problem with Ember Spirit is he'll have these games where he's mid and he's up against like a quap and he just gets chain ganked early on. Like
a Sumail game, pretty much. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like that hero. The problem with that hero is that there are going to be games, Sumail or anybody else, where he's going to have 5 deaths at like 12 minutes. And that's just the nature of the hero, is that if he can start mid and he can get really crapped on early.
Unless you're Eternal Envy.
If he gets to 12, 15 minutes and he's had a good start, then yeah, like he could easily not die the rest of the game. But that hero is vulnerable to a lot of deaths early on.
Unless you're Eternal Envy, who, as I recall, doesn't die and wins every game he's in. So the next one that I want to get to is
Did we go back in time 6 months? No, sorry.
Hey, come on, dude.
No, I joke. I love Jack.
Jack is a great player and a great guy, and he plays a hell of an Ember Spirit. Let's give him credit there.
Yeah.
He plays a hell of an Ember Spirit. I'm curious about a couple of these team ones in particular because a few of these seem difficult for me. The team that wins the longest and shortest games. Longest seems a little bit easier for me because I feel like Alliance is probably the team that's most likely to drag a game out and find a solution in the ultra hyper super quadra late game. And but the shortest game is kind of surprising to me because it feels like circumstances sort of have to line up for you to get that short game. What are you guys' thoughts?
Short game is easier. The thing about short game is that you pick a team that has a very favorable group, and you pick a team that you think is going to win in some stomps.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that the first match of the tournament could actually be that. Like eHome could beat MVP.
Yeah,
and that could be the shortest game.
I mean, eHome, EG, any team. The thing about EG is in a fairly challenging group relative to some of the other teams, but you pick a team that you think is gonna have some really lopsided matchups early on. I think the longest game is a much harder call. I think you could see LGD, Newbie, Alliance is probably not on my top 5 or top 4 or 5 choices for that one, but it's not a bad choice either. I think my top teams for that would be would be newbie, LGB, even maybe as badly as I fear that they'll do. Like I could even see very weird things happening in Archon doing that. They actually have like a 42-minute average match length.
Oh, I have Archon just because I had the privilege of casting their 120-minute game, their 90-minute game, and their 80-minute game. So it's kind of a biased pick, but they literally. Archon it's a fluff and stuff thing. They don't get flustered even when they won all 3 of those games with 1 core, a Syllabear in all 3 of them. And they had like 4 supports around them. And they still won 120-minute games with 1 core. I don't know. Archon is just, if they win, it's going to be a long drawn out game, not a 10-minute game.
Do you see parallels between, I see some parallels between this Archon squad and the last iteration of C9. The way that Thebon captained that squad.
Yeah, I can see that. I think they have a little less, not maturity. Like they have less time playing in general in the pro scene. I think that's going to hurt them here, especially on LAN, like with Whitebeard. And Whitebeard's sick, but yeah.
Excellent. Well, I just want to interject real quick and give a sincere apology to our audience who is watching and seeing the fun of working with Skype in a professional context. As you can see, it's a wonderful piece of software that has no problems whatsoever. Guys, before we wrap up the discussion about the compendium predictions, I want to hit real quick the specific numbers. I thought these were interesting predictions, like the number of games played, the total number of heroes picked, things like that. And the ones that the trend that I'm seeing, I got a spreadsheet in front of me that shows what you guys picked, and it looks like Zhao 8 feels like we're going to see a lot of long games with a lot of kills, and you guys seem to disagree. I see PPD, I see Nahaz and Noxville. You guys are putting the games at like 80 to 90 minutes, something like that for the longest game, 15 to 20 at the shortest. Do you really think we're going to see that much of a spread in the games that we see in the group stages?
No, I do.
The predictions are based on all of the games, not just group stages.
Yeah, but
so tournament games are included. Oh, I see.
Honestly, let me. The biggest thing that I tried to do when Nox and I made this video was to say that look, predicting averages is very different mathematically from predicting maximums. Anytime you say longest game of the tournament, highest kill total, highest GPM, it's like, okay. I mean, those are guesses. Let's be frank. They're educated guesses, but they're guesses. Like we can give you very good predictions for total number of games played, total heroes picked. We have a very hard time definitively predicting what the longest match is going to be.
Well, because it only takes one of those games,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, as long as all the games go between 20 and 60 minutes rigidly, and then one goes for 2 hours. Yeah. That's
like
it.
Grant just gave the perfect example of that a couple of minutes ago, where Archon, they do have some other longer matches, but their longest matches that you have the 130-minute game, and then it goes down to like 85, 90, and then there could easily be like a 130-minute game. There was one day in Frankfurt, in fact, where I think every match was like over before 40 minutes, and then we had one that was 80. So
I'm just worried about perfect world servers, us watching games, and if it is a 100-minute game, the textures exploding plus the combination of that, I really don't think the games will be watchable if that happens.
Can we just? Oh my God! Can we just not? Because I am really worried about that, but I don't think there's jack and crap we can do about it.
I very distinctly remember a game in which Darkseer had a new Arcana, had like explosions around him, lightning. He was leaving a trail of like frostbite.
That was the Archon game going.
That was the Archon. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. Well, gentlemen, you're on the hook. Money back guarantee. If you don't get your compendium points, these are the men to hold responsible, and you know what their Skype pictures look like, so make sure to go find them. Let's move on from compendium predictions to the actual meat and potatoes of this thing. We've got 4 groups of 4 teams, and it is just a prediction paradise. So let's dive straight into it if you guys are ready. With Group A, the match is coming up today. We've got CDEC, eHome, MVP Phoenix, and Team Secret. Guys, starting with Grant, break down this group for me.
Oh, I still think Secret is a tier 1 team going into this tournament, even though everyone wants to say they're not. I actually have them placing higher than OG here. Like, I might be completely off the mark, but I do.
All right. Break it down for me. Why?
I know how Puppy reacts to bad situations like this, or like when Secret had their first loss after they won like 7 lands. They came back and won again. I just think
All right.
he does his thing, and I think Riha will do far. I think he's been practicing a lot from what
I want to. This is one of 2 or 3 teams I really want to get Grant to break down for me, because I absolutely love Wee as a player. I think the guy is a magnificent player and a great person. They have not been able to figure out his hero pool. I don't think they're going to win this tournament with Earth Spirit mid. So, I mean, what do you do with Wee mid? What does he play in this patch, in this meta?
It's literally, he's just going to have to go Windrunner Lina like almost every game. I think are his 2 heroes. That's pretty much it. But I think when he does do those, he dominates his lanes like against like a Sumail Ember. Like even Quaps, he dominates them, but it's if teams give it to him and if Puppy wants to pick it for him.
Now, I want to interject with you guys real quick because we've got a Reddit question that pertains to this. You're talking about some underutilized picks. Crazy actually wants to know, what are some 6.86 underutilized heroes or surprisingly not seen that we'll see on the rise after or at the Shanghai Major? And
Grant gave you one before, and that's Beastmaster.
Yep, and hit me with some others. What
the other
pocket
one
strats
is
are we gonna
the
see?
other one is OD. Big one is OD, which we've seen a lot in NA, but not necessarily in other regions. And I think this tournament could very well be for OD what MDL was for a Spirit.
Yeah, I am glad they nerfed Invoker, but I think OD was a better hero than Invoker even before Invoker at the nerf. OD's so strong right now. He's unbeatable in lane, any lane. He doesn't lose.
So next we'll have to nerf him. What is it? Astral Imprisonment will no longer be a hard disable. You'll still be able to cast spells in it. We'll just go down the line. Just nerf every mid hero until everybody's the same. So you're saying OD was a better hero to begin with. Tell me a little bit about that, because at first blush, Invoker seems to be a much more versatile hero at the very least, and certainly has more escape in the mid lane where you're seeing a lot of ganks. What makes OD a better hero in that position right now?
If he does go in, we've seen actually Sumail and Arteezy both played safe lane, but if it's just middle, the fact he has a 4-second setup or like a getaway at level 1, like you combine it with the Potom, any kind of ganker, you can just set up. You always get the rune with that hero. Like once he's in the late game, he does the most amount of damage. You can always keep pushing with him. His aura's always been good. I think it's been underutilized like in the past 8 years. It's hard to say exactly. He's just extremely. The amount of damage he can put out early game and late game is unrivaled.
I think if you wanted to oversimplify it, what you'd say is that he is almost as much of a lane dominator now as he used to be. And his mid-game, his damage output and utility now in mid-game and late-game fights is so much more than it used to be post-rework. Now that Astral Orb has the int steal, like he can right-click. If he gets off 10 right-clicks in a team fight and then ulties, like your whole team's dead.
My question then, as somebody who's watched some Dota, is why not pick the Templar the Templar Assassin in the mid lane? Because while OD has the ability to destroy attacks with his Astral Imprisonment, TA has the Refract, which means she can stay mobile while she escapes ganks. She has the Side Blades, which obviously don't do as much damage as Outworld Devourer. But why is that not a better pick right now than OD?
You want to take this one, Grant?
Now you can have it.
I mean, so again, oversimplifying. I'm not going to get too. I don't want to get too bogged down in technical minutia, but the big thing is TA got nerfed a couple patches ago, so that her spells are now very expensive, right?
Oh,
so she gets Astral Orbed a couple times, and she's too dumb to do anything.
You see, I'm a good support, and I always keep the arcane boots on cooldown. So I guess I've just never noticed that problem.
I'm too much of a Waga fanboy, and like I've allowed Waga to convince me that like with proper positioning and good use of side blades, you can win any lane with TA ever. But from what I've seen, like TA can really get hurt against OD because of the combination. You can imprison her early on to screw up her last hitting, and then you can orb her a couple times, and she has real mana issues.
She does need a fair bit of farm, and that mana is going to catch up soon, I'm sure. So going back to the group, it sounds like we have a vote for Team Secret. And what was your other pick to go through in the group, Grant?
I think Secret and Yeah, it has to be eHome. Apparently, everyone thinks they're the favorite in the tournament.
We're going to have it out about this later. Go, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is clear that eHome is probably number 1 and MVP is probably number 4. But Secret and CDEC, I think, are going to have to meet each other twice to decide who goes forward. And obviously, only one of those matches really counts, and that's the second one. So we might. I'm probably only going to be able to stay awake to watch their first match and then the second round. But I think that the most exciting match of the entire group won't be the winners bracket final. It'll be the losers bracket or the decider, second, third.
I think of all the opening matches in the tournament, I think we may learn the most from Secret versus CDEC, because those are, if you were to ask me what are my 3 or 4 sort of wild card teams that I could see making a big run in this tournament, or teams that I could see absolutely flaming out, those would be 2 of the 3 or 4 teams, and they're facing each other in the first game of the tournament.
I mean, just to be clear, it's probably Secret, CDEC, Newbie, and Vici that we are uncertain about. Vici we're a little bit more sure that they're higher.
So I'd put VP in there. I'd put VP in there as one of my big wild cards, but
as a fifth, I would put VP. Yeah,
but I think the big thing
is like right up there, but it's a question of whether Vici is going to have variance that makes them drop or whether they stay at a high level. People have put them top 4. I think that's fine.
That seems to be the problem with Chinese teams.
The thing about Vici is that they're like their downside is like I cannot see Vici Gaming finishing outside the top 8. I really can't.
Can anybody actually see Vici finishing outside the top 8, especially as this lineup gets back? I mean, at the previous tournament, obviously they looked great, just not good enough to make it over that hump that they seem to face every time they get into the later stages of the bracket.
Well, I could see that, but that's Group B. I don't want to rush anything here.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Grant, for keeping some structure in this show. I appreciate. Okay, so we've got 2 votes for Secret. It looks like we're also looking at eHome as obviously.
Why is eHome so favored? Are we taking
Did you
MDL?
Watch MDL?
Yeah, I watched. I watched a new patch get played, and now I've watched
new patch.
I've watched an.
How many LANs did we have? How many LANs did we have before MDL?
And now,
we had at least 2 major LANs before MDL.
Yeah, and I mean, hey,
okay, and fine. You don't want to count WC? We had Starlight at 13. Like we had hundreds of games played before that. It's not a new patch anymore, brother.
I just can't deal with him right now.
I'm giving you a little bit. I'm giving you a little bit too much shit here.
Okay, well,
I agree with you that the meta, many aspects of the meta are still up in the air, but like eHome took people apart at MDL.
Yeah.
And not just EG.
So why do you think eHome is still the best, even though we haven't seen him play in a month now, in like decent matches?
Have we seen anybody play in decent matches in a month?
Yeah. The captain's draft tournament.
Oh my god. That's the thing, is that there's just haven't been that many tournaments that aren't consistent and over a long period of time.
I think that's what frustrates me about the eHome pick being so unanimous, is that we did see eHome's new style. I think that people sort of slept in the Chinese teams going into MDL, and they certainly dominated. But has there been enough time to figure this team out, or are they literally so far ahead of people right now that they're still the consensus pick?
Of course they're
no. Yeah, teams can definitely catch up. It's been 3 weeks since MDL finished. EG especially, I think, has put a lot of time into that specific matchup, which they need to.
EG and OG both.
EG is 1-5 against eHome in the last month alone. So,
yeah. But it's not just eHome. EG has struggled against a number of that. That's my big concern about them, is that EG has struggled against a number of the top teams in this patch. And I think if there's one team that learns the most by losing, it is EG. And so I think that they'll have a better showing in this tournament. But I mean, better. They made the grand finals the last 2 major lands they've been to. but still.
Well, fortunately for EG fans, they've done a lot of losing lately. Noxville, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want, before we get too far down the rabbit hole, to get to Group B. We've got Alliance, Fnatic, Team Spirit, and Vici. I'm going to, for our own purposes, say that Team Spirit and Fnatic are probably not going to make it out of this one, are they?
I think Spirit has a shot. I think they're
not after the Invoker nerf.
Well, I still just think they're like, I don't want to say dumb style of play. Like they're making you play their style. They do that well. I could see like, I know it's just a CD term, but we saw Alliance get destroyed by Vega 4-0. And Team Spirit plays an extremely similar game.
Okay, that's actually where I thought you were going to start, Grant, and that's what I really want to pick your brain about in this group. Like, you had a front row seat for Alliance getting absolutely dismantled, and the question I want to ask you, did Vegas show us a blueprint for how to beat Alliance?
Yeah, aggressive play style, like not even five-manning, just extremely aggressive, in your face, winning lane play style, like not like. If Sumail loses a lane versus, say, like Vega, they're going to lose the game if he loses that bad. Vega dominates their lanes, and they keep going. I think they did. And Team Spirit plays very similar to Vega.
I think we saw in the past that one of the things that allowed Alliance to succeed at Starladder 13, pardon me, for example, is the fact that they were sort of, in the grand final especially, they were given room by EG to get 2 cores nicely farmed so that they could head into the enemy jungle with Chen and really push the issue. So is that the thing? Is that you just make them uncomfortable from the get-go, and that's how you beat Alliance?
No, I think Grant had it right, is that you've got to win your lanes and you got to run at them. It's as simple as that. The thing that I worry about with Spirit is that they're very, very reliant on Iceberg, who's their tremendously talented young mid player, a bit of a newcomer to the scene. But Invoker is by far his best and most played hero. Apart from Invoker, his hero pool is pretty small. He really plays mostly OD and Zeus, and I think OD is going to start to get banned. I don't know about Zeus mid, so I think without the Invoker nerf, I could have seen a Spirit upside of Alliance. With it, oof.
Fair enough.
I think Team Spirit has a chance of beating Vici and Alliance. Will they? Probably not, but I think they have a chance. Fnatic, no.
So we all agree Fnatic is probably number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Net set. Love Net.
I think this is the easiest group to call, and I think it's Alliance and Vici coming through with no problem.
So we can agree. Okay, so then in that case,
I'm not agreeing.
Who
but
first?
I'll say yeah.
Who in first? Who in second? Is Alliance?
Alliance.
I think you have to take Alliance in first. So when I used to do college basketball statistics, Alliance is my wicked queen team of this tournament. They're like the opposite of a Cinderella. Okay, they're a dominant team. They're a tier 1 team, but I actually do think that they're vulnerable to upsets by mid-tier opponents. I just don't think that Team Spirit or Fnatic really have the tools to threaten Alliance seriously in group phase play.
I think either Alliance is going to be first or they're going to be third. I don't see them getting second. Like Team Spirit's either going to beat them twice or they're not going to beat them once. Yeah.
That is a bold call. So the easiest group to call, and we still have a little bit of disagreement. I think that's what we all love about the majors right now, is that things are a little up in the air. Let's go ahead and move on to Group C. Arguably, maybe not even arguably, easily the group of death. We've got LGD, Newbie, OG, and Archon. I mean, there
are a lot of people, by the way, have been saying that about EG's group, but I actually think that this is a tough group.
I think this group's stronger. I think this group's stronger than
you got. All right, I was expecting to be the only one saying, no, man, maybe Group C is the best. I don't know that it's clear cut, but I think Groups C and D are both just brutally tough.
Yeah, they're tiers above the other two.
Which is why it's too bad that we have to wait 2 days to see their games, right?
Well, yeah, it's kind of it's almost like someone new.
Yeah.
We were having a discussion, a bunch of us, and I think the agreement was DCAB, and from most difficult to least difficult.
I could see that.
This would be C would be the second hardest, and I think that's probably the most reasonable.
I'd even say DCAB. The difference between the top two and the bottom two is much less than the difference across.
Yeah, whoever comes out of these groups is going to be in a favorable matchup, I think.
Well,
once they
I
get
don't
there.
even know about that. It just all depends on how the brackets fall, because Dota right now is just, teams are so much better that it becomes a lot more about matchups and play styles and who's good with which heroes that counter another team's strats than it is about, oh, this team is just better than this team.
So we should also at this stage give some credit to Valve, because we kind of agree that the groups are relatively balanced in some sets. Maybe there are one or two changes you could make to make it more balanced, but Group C has got 3 teams that were qualifier teams, and we're still saying it's the second hardest group. I mean, that's just a testament to how close it is between a lot of the teams in terms of skill.
Now,
OG is the only direct invite, yeah.
Before we get into some really hard analysis, I want to keep the audience's suspense a little bit. We've got the top comment from our announcement thread today. It's from Zayush, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who wants to know, talks about how in the CSGO majors, the top 8 finishers in the major auto-qualify for the next major. In Magic the Gathering's Pro Tour, all players with 11 wins in groups get invited to the next Pro Tour stop. If there was an automatic qualifying placement cutoff for Dota 2's majors and TI, where would you set the cutoff? I mean, are we saying the top 2 from each group should be automatically invited? Because in that case,
no, top 4 placings. I wouldn't. That's
I think
top 4 or top 6.
I tend to be with Ben. I would favor. I've said in the past that I would favor 6 direct invites and 10 qualifier positions, with 3 given to the 2 best performing regions in the previous major, according to some objective criterion. And I think it ought to be top 4 are auto invites, 2 auto invites determined by committee, and then the other 10 are qualified.
So we're talking about I mean, at that point, with 2 automatic qualifiers, we're not even distributing invitations by region at that point, are we? We're not going to say.
But we haven't been. Mm-hmm. We haven't been. That's the
fair.
thing. That it's pretty clear, and I think this was the right move, and I give Valve a lot of credit for making it, that the auto invites have pretty clearly been decided by who's the best freaking Dota team, and not, oh, we got to invite X teams from this region.
Yeah. If it was me, I would just have the top 2 invited. I like seeing teams actually earn theirs. Not saying they don't earn it when they're invited. Obviously, one step before. But, I mean, how you played 3 weeks ago, like even at MDL, isn't indicative of how you're going to play tomorrow.
Very true. But you got to. But the only thing is, I'll say about that, Grant, it gets to be a slippery slope, because the big thing that turns fans, if you look at the overall development of the sport and our growth as a scene, the big thing that turns fans off is opacity. Is just nobody understands why Team X got invited and not Team Y. Yeah, like you look at the BCS in college football.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Just invite the first and second place people, and I'm good.
But the BCS was bad though, right? Like I think I think that you make the biggest thing to me, more important than how many top 2, top 4, top 6, whatever. Okay. Is that the whole process be more transparent, and that we all understand exactly what goes into selecting teams.
But look at how much fun we had stirring up drama when Alliance was invited over Liquid. I mean, I think that there's some drama to be had there, some pageantry. I kind of enjoyed it, to be completely honest.
Okay,
Maybe you got invited to TI. That was more fun.
No, my God.
Oh, that was. I actually wrote an entire article about that. I was so angry, and I feel vindicated for the results. Let's get back to the actual group predictions. Group C, LGD, Newbie, OG Team, Archon. Let's start with Noxville. Your thoughts on Group C?
I think Archon. Okay. You're all American, so you're gonna flame me, but I think Archon's number 4 here. But I don't think it's as clear cut as Fnatic or MVP. I think Newbie is a team with like insane variance. They played really well recently, but just before that they played really trash. So I think it's probably OG at number 1. Their performance at MDL was pretty decent, despite them being sick. They still managed to get top 4 there. LGD looked good at WCA.
They looked pretty good at Starlighter too.
Yeah, I don't know
Until
about-
they ran up against Alliance, they looked like one of the better. They looked like one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the tournament.
It's very hard to look at overall placings in single elimination tournaments and try compare. Yeah, it's the same with like Liquid at WCA. Liquid basically got to the same point as Alliance and then just drew LGD, whereas Alliance drew Wings, and then it was
Yeah,
like,
but
what?
I still think that there's a lot to be gained from asking what's the highest level Dota a team has played, and like LGD and OG have both played really, really high level Dota in this patch.
Yeah.
Like I that's kind of what I ask myself in terms of picking like a top 4 or 6 in a tournament like this is if this team plays at its potential, plays at the best level that we've seen them play in this patch, maybe plus a little improvement, can they beat the top teams? And LG and OG, that question you answer with an emphatic yes.
Yeah, I think even with newbie, we've seen some really, really good play this patch. I looked at the Russian, they do like ratings for each of the teams to do some sort of power rating, and they break it down.
That was a little weird, man.
And
they gave newbie a 5 on their supports. I actually think newbie's supports have been playing really well.
I think it's like the exact opposite of what they had. I think that newbie is definitely a team that could break into top 8, but it will take an upset or 2, and they're a team that can do that. They looked really strong. They won the Chinese qualifiers, didn't they?
Yes.
I think they were the guys who won.
No, they were the number
LGD.
2 team. Sorry, they were LGD and newbie were.
Yeah.
That's why. Okay. By the way,
which is dumb.
That was my big issue when the brackets came out. Was I think that the groups are balanced, but I actually do, in terms of maybe a little bit of fan service, I actually do think it's a little bit strange to me that you have the 2 Chinese qualifier teams facing each other in the first round.
Oh yeah, LGD and newbie met in one of the semifinals of the winners bracket of that, and it was 2-1, and the third game was actually pretty decent.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think in newbie's case, I actually think they play a style that really is disorienting to a lot of teams because they're very aggressive with their early game rotations. They use a lot of smokes, but then they're very conservative in the mid game, and they get a lead and they stretch it out. And
that's exactly what Scant actually said. He said, I really hate casting newbie because it's so great watching them early game, and then they just sit there and they don't know how to go high ground, and then they try to go high ground.
No, it's not. No. I honestly, I watched a number of their replays. I don't think it's not that they don't know how at all. I think it's deliberate. It's a lot because if you look at them, it's very disorienting to play against them. They've had some success against the top teams doing this. That they'll get that early lead and then they'll just sort of farm, and the other team has lost map control, and eventually the other team feels like they got to make some kind of a big play to get map control back. Newbie's not feeding away big gold leads in ramp fights.
Well, there you go. Grant, I want to go to you really quick because when Nahaz made some comments about Archon, you shook your head. Tell us why we should bet on Archon in Group C.
Oh my God! Here we go.
I'm not. No. It's like you shouldn't bet. You shouldn't bet him. But I think Archon will probably get last. But I can't say that because they're the boys from USA, and I thought Nahaz would be a little better of sports.
Hey, no, look.
Yeah, I love China too. It's great.
Fluff and look, I honestly, Fluff and Theban are 2 of the most underrated guys in the game in terms of their knowledge, their understanding of Dota. They are great captains. I think if those 2 ever got a damn stable roster underneath them and had a chance to develop a team over time, that they could have we'd have another great NA team. But sadly, we can't have a damn NA Dota team besides EG who stays together for longer than 6 months.
I think the problem, too, with Archon right now is exactly what you said about Iceberg. Monkeys Forever's most played hero is by far Invoker as well. And he's their weakest player. I can say that.
He's the thing is, like, when they go off meta, when they pick him something like weird as shit like Batrider mid, he does great. When they pick him meta heroes mid, he does awful.
I agree. I think EG's the best at all their positions in NA, but if you take them out, I think Moo is a top 3 most talented player too. I think
he's so underrated. Absolutely.
And then Jo's playing carry. I love him playing carry again instead of mid because his composure is way better late game than like if he was playing an aggressive mid. I don't know. They'll probably get last, but I'm not saying that.
It's also
OG. I think OG is good. That's it.
I thought you were going to say OG is going to finish 4th, and I was about to kick you out of this Skype call.
I think they'll get out of groups, but then they're going to lose first round, so whatever.
You're not. So tell me why you're not sold on OG. And it better not be other Euros.
No, Moonmanner's on. I mean, let's name. Honestly, we could name the last major that a team won that didn't have an American on it. It's a long time ago because Moonmander. I mean, they carry, but I think it's they got figured out, and I think Miracle is actually in the same thing as who's the other young man? I don't know. I think
how did they How did they get figured out? You mean at MDL? Were they lost to EG because like both teams were sick and it was a crazy series? Like
I mean, you can't use them. No excuse.
No. Okay, hold on. EG didn't beat OG at MDL because both teams were sick. They beat them because they picked Fear of farming support and then managed to put together great. And they picked a big team fight hero and managed to out team fight them early.
Get him. I don't even have to talk. This guy's getting you for me. Like any.
Are you seriously getting OG looked like? They looked like world beater. OG and eHome looked like the 2 best teams for most of that tournament. And you're going to tell me that OG got figured out.
Wait. You mean apart from eHome, who 2-1 EG, then Vici, then
I'm sorry.
OG?
I meant what I meant to say was that
this was 3 weeks
eHome
ago.
and OG looked like the best 2 teams. Did I say EG?
Did you?
Yeah,
you
did.
eHome?
I wasn't listening.
You said OG and ED.
No, what I meant to say was that OG and eHome looked like the 2 best. I might have said I might have misspoken and said EG instead of eHome. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought you said EG.
That's pretty.
It's all Gucci, man.
If you guys,
the thing is,
I think how it's shaking out, like EG's been, the CK is going to come in big this term. I just think it's not suited to, I don't know. That's just my opinion, you know. I think OG isn't going to be as great as everyone thinks they will.
Gentlemen, thank you for this delicious helping of popcorn. By the way, I think everybody watching thanks you too. Okay, so we're looking at obviously not an easy decision. It's not as cut and dry as Group B, for example. But LGD looks strong, OG looks strong, and Newbie, it really depends on which lineup shows up. Is that sort of a fair way to put it together?
Seems good.
Okay, well, there we go. Then the final group, of course, is Group D, another one of these groups of death, which is so great that we get these. Complexity, Evil Geniuses, Team Liquid, and Virtus Pro. Guys, please have at one another. Let's start with you, Nahaz.
I mean, how did Cull get a draw like this? This is just brutal. Like, I was all ready to talk about them as maybe being one of my surprise teams of the tournament. This group is like the worst possible matchup for them. It's just, it sucks.
They can't beat EG. They literally have to qualify through losers if they do.
No, and the thing is, like, VP is along with Secret and CDC. VP is a team. Who the hell knows? They've played like 5 games this year. I could see them finishing top 6. I could see them finishing 12. Like, who the hell knows what they're going to do? And Liquid is a very, very difficult team to call because they're a dominant team outside of the top 7, but within the top 7, they've only played like 5 games. So you don't know how I think Liquid is going to be fine in terms of making it in. I do think Liquid will make it into the winners bracket out of this group, but they're against one of the highest variance teams, and they don't have a great track record against tier 1 squads.
So Complexity going to struggle? Anybody want to argue with that? That Complexity has a tough road ahead, shall we say?
Well, they definitely have a tough road, but I think they're literally one of those teams that you just, I don't even know how to put this. You think of them, you're like, that's a team. They live in a team out like 24/7. They're one of the few teams that like actually does that. And I think with the introduction of like other 3 European players, they're insanely good. And Swindle Melons is one of the best in-game leaders. I get to listen to scrims and stuff sometimes. Like, sometimes I think he's gotten way better in off-lane, but like in-game leadership, not even drafting, just his leadership is so amazingly good. They've won more games, I swear, maybe Nahaz does stats, like where they're down 20,000 and they just come back after like 2 team fights and you're like, I don't know why.
Swindle is very, very good. If you ever listen, it's actually kind of, if you ever like listen to one of his debriefs, like they do a very detailed debrief after their games, and I really like Swindle as a leader. Like, I think there are better drafters out there, but in terms of a team leader, I think he's very, very good. I think you can see that in terms of they always have a plan, even if they lose their lanes. And like I said, I was all ready to pick Complexity as a dark horse team in this tournament. I just think this is a very unfavorable group for them.
The only thing I'm going to say is they definitely, no offense to any players, but like upgrading from like Ziz to Chessie is like one of the biggest upgrades of all time. Like it's just, Chessie's insane.
He's insane. Chessie is like beyond legit. I mean, that guy, I don't know that he is anywhere near his potential yet. I don't think he's an elite level player right now, but I think that potential, he has the potential to be a top 10 player in the world.
I think the best part is if this team loses like multiple tournaments in a row and stuff, I don't even worry about them like disbanding or trading a player right now. They actually seem like a legitimate.
It's exactly
team.
right.
It's just
I think they are.
They'll get outclassed though.
I think they're another 3 to 6 months away from really contending for that high tier 2, tier 1 status, but I think they'll stay there. I think they'll get there. I think they're a threat in Manila. I think they got a bad group, and put together with that, I don't think they're quite ready to make a run with this unfavorable draw in Shanghai.
You guys really took the words right out of my mouth, because we've had beef on the show. We've talked to Chessie as well. This seems like a team that's very much committed to getting better and understands that the way forward for North America isn't constantly jumping on the roster carousel and hoping that whatever comes out the other side is world class. Want to talk about EG for a second, and maybe I just love drama, but we've got a question from Snipabad, who's asking if EG doesn't win. Yes, Snipabad. If EG doesn't win a major with Arteezy, will they swap him for somebody else? I mean, this is a roster that's supposed to be winning tournaments. They've quote unquote struggled by making the 2 past grand finals of major tournaments. Are things really that dire for EG sitting in Group D?
No, they're not going to give up already before TI6. Even if they could get last in this tournament, they won't give him up. He's
I think
arguably the best player in the world.
I think the only situation is one where you have something like what they described at TI, where they have a really tough loss and somebody just kind of loses their cool. But apart from that, no. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, Snipabad. I'm afraid Arteezy is here to stay.
It's just Snipabad. Come on, man.
Just get with the program, dude.
So much great Snipabad. Bad. I don't mean that. Thank you very much for your question, and I appreciate you contributing to the show. Moving on, Team Liquid. This is a team that a lot of people were really excited about for a while. People were very hot on, but they've sort of struggled at late. This is team number 3 in Group D. What are Team Liquid's chances of getting out of this group?
I think that they've got the best chance to come out of their group, but not as the favorite for the group out of all of the groups. So I think that the divide between them and VP is not necessarily the biggest. I think the difference in Group C was the biggest between LGD and Newbie, but yeah, it's very close between Complexity and Virtus Pro for that last place, in the same way that Team Spirit and Fnatic are very close.
The way I would phrase that, though, is that my interval in terms of reasonable finishes for VP is as wide as any other team in the tournament. We mentioned that earlier. Secret, CDEC, VP, and I think Ben had Vici Gaming. Both of us had Newbie, though. Those would be my 4 teams outside of Vici Gaming, who I think will do really well. The other ones I mentioned would be the 4 teams I just think are total wild cards in this tournament. I could see them flaming out. I could see any of those 2 teams, any of those guys finishing even potentially on the upside of the bottom 4 or 5. I could see any of those teams making a surprise run and finishing top 4.
Yeah, the only reason I mentioned Vici is just not necessarily that they are a wild card, but that they're very high variance. They could come 4th, they could come 2nd, they could come 6th. They could come anywhere.
VG or Team Liquid right now?
Vici, they could come anywhere in the top 6. Whereas
The problem, it's a problem with projecting Liquid because like Liquid is high mean, low variance. VP is probably a little lower mean, but ridiculously high variance. So, who knows what VP team, like if the VP team that played at Frankfurt shows up to this tournament, VP gave OG a hell of a series at Frankfurt in an elimination match. Like that was 2-1. That was probably the closest series that OG had.
And VP's always sort of on solid ground right now with FNG in the captain's chair because he always seems to give them something to work with. Even if it's unorthodox, even if it's maybe not the best for the situation, like we talked about with Complexity, they always seem to have a plan now, don't they?
I think I am a little bit biased. I think since I know the guy a little bit, we've talked a few times, but I think FNG is extraordinarily bright, and I think he's a great drafter. I think he's probably top 6 in the world drafter.
I just want to say, I think the problem for Liquid right now is they look weak. Like the last 2 tournaments they've played, mind controls looked bad. Matumba Man hasn't been farming at an insane pace that he has been. And
those two observations are highly related.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're coming into the tournament like this, and I think they're. I don't see him getting top 2 in the group.
Yeah, they need. I mean that there's no. I will agree with Grant in that there is no way around it. If mind control is not the sick AF player we've seen, they're screwed. Like they absolutely need him to be an elite player in this tournament to have a shot at going deep. And if he comes into this tournament in a slump, they're done for.
All right, so we've got a highly variant team in Complexity. They've got a long road ahead. We've got a team that's slumping right now with Team Liquid. So does that mean we're cutting this group of death down to EG and VP that easily?
No, I think I actually think it's going to be EG and Liquid.
Absolutely. Well, to the first question.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you.
I don't think it'll. I just don't see Liquid doing good.
Okay, so let's.
I think the problem is just one point. I think that there've been 3 major lands dispatched: WCA, Starlight, Mars, and WCA Liquid lost to LGD, who ended up coming second, and it was single elimination. I mean, there was a 3rd, 4th playoff, but that's irrelevant. Whatever, Wings Gaming. So they lost to a team that came second, which is LGD, and they also beat Alliance 2-0 in group stage, who won. So there's a 3-way triangle there between those teams. At Starladder, they lost to Alliance, so there's once again same situation. And in an MDL, they didn't go to MDL. So I think it's quite reasonable to say that we haven't seen enough of Liquid going deep into these double elimination big LAN tournaments, and that is in itself its skill.
To expound on what you're saying, because I think this is a really good point. This is why I said earlier that I think you have to watch the games before the playoffs, because this is the other big error that I think a lot of analysts make is they'll talk about the finish order at a tournament. Like how good you looked before the playoff brackets, a lot of weird stuff can happen. How good you looked and the level of Dota that you played before the playoff bracket does matter. Group stages matter. And Liquid and LGD both looked insane. They looked really, really good at Starladder before running into Alliance and EG respectively. And those playoff series where those 2 teams got eliminated were super, super close. Like that Liquid and Alliance series at Starladder was one of the best series of Dota I've seen in the last year. I do think Liquid's really good, but I do agree with Grant that if mind control is not, if he doesn't play like a tier 1 offlaner, that team they're done. They're just done, period.
All right, so it sounds like we've got a handful of fairly agreed upon predictions in these groups. Now we're going to do the fun part right before we head into we hand things off to Valve to do the actual tournament. Let's go ahead and predict the final bracket. Let's go ahead and break it down, guys. Who is going to flame out early in the bracket, and who's going to make it through to the semifinals?
MVP Archon, MVP Fnatic, maybe Complexity. I think those are
the 4th placers, sure.
Yeah, I think they're out of there.
I got OG. Just not getting out, not winning one series.
You don't think OG is going to win a series in the bracket?
I do not believe they are. I think they lose.
All right, fair enough.
I'm not 100% sure, but as far as I can recall from how the bracket worked at Frankfurt, if OG win their group, they'll play the second team from Group D, which would be Liquid or Virtus Pro. So that would be a difficult game, nonetheless. I mean, it's the two hardest groups that pair off against
that's
each other.
competition, though, that's competition that they're very familiar with.
That's assuming they're in the winners bracket and they don't lose to Newbie and LGD. And they don't get a best of one and get cheesed out by Liquid or something.
Well, wouldn't it be like very poetic justice if OG were to lose to a cheese strat after what they did at Frankfurt?
Yeah,
like their drafts revolved around. It was like a cheesy fondue of just
come
like different.
on! Oh my lord!
Whoa, fanboy alert! Get him, Nahaz.
Like, what are you gonna call? Okay, fine. I like anybody that exploits what's broken in a patch. You can say it's cheese, but you can also say they won $3 million. Like, whatever. I mean, I don't. If you're doing something in your draft, if you're using Meepo and Huskar as sort of your ultimate like trump cards to go around lineups, a lot of lineups involving other meta heroes like Shadowfiend, Miracle, and AM. Like, yeah, it was very hard to draft against them at Frankfurt. I don't call that cheese. Like they did one thing, like they gave the ball to Michael Jordan. Nobody could stop Michael Jordan. Is that cheese?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That is definitely. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't one thing. They had.
You say cheese, I say champion.
Oh no, you're right.
They're definitely right. If cheesing is the way to go, cheesing's the way to go. I'm just saying that they had like, you could break down their drafts into like 7 different strats, and they did 1 or 2 of those strats every single game. Like it's a strategy, it's a cheese, whatever they did.
Nox, you're 100% right in your fact pattern, and 100% like I don't understand your conclusion right now. Like that's what teams should do. Teams, I think more good teams need to run fewer strats and run them really, really well. OG ran half a dozen strats, yes, and that was a smaller set than some of the other top teams. They ran every one of those half a dozen strats really, really, really well. That's hard to beat.
I'm loving this, guys. Please keep talking. This is delicious popcorn.
I agree with you, but then you look at someone like EG who literally doesn't run the same lineup more than once ever, and I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think they're better players. I actually think they can get trapped with that, though. I think that may be part of the reason that they've struggled in grand finals. I don't know.
Let's go ahead and try to narrow down our predictions while we wait for Perfect World to get the broadcast started. Wherever my words are, I'm sure they're there somewhere. Let's figure out who is going to be in the upper bracket semifinal. Who are your 4 teams who are going to make it all the way to upper bracket round 2?
It's going to require me to actually look at the bracket, won't it?
Well,
no, not necessarily.
Are you asking for top 4 finishes in the tournament, or are you asking for
in the winners bracket?
You know what? Let's make it easier on you guys. Let's just go with. We're not going to predict the losers bracket. F that. Who are your top 4 teams in Shanghai?
Okay.
Nahaz, OG, obviously.
I got eHome, I got EG, I got OG, and then I think there are a number of contenders for that 4 spot. I think if you put a gun to my head and made me pick one, I guess I have to pick Alliance, but I'm pretty nervous that they're vulnerable to upsets.
Okay, fair enough.
I like that team a lot, but
I have the same where it's like I think OG will be number 3, and then EG and eHome fighting for number 1, and then number 4 is very difficult because Alliance is statistically the team that you want to put in there, but yeah, they can lose games against any team. Right. If they're just not playing well, and Vichi's waiting right there to pounce into top 4. So whatever.
Grant, who's your top 4?
I got EG, eHome. I mean, I think everyone agrees on that, and then I got LGD and Secret. I think.
You think Secret's gonna break through?
I do.
And you think they're gonna top 4. Going back to Lena and Wind Ranger with mid, because that's my big question with them.
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to do off lane?
Offlane?
Misery's not like
He's not really a Tide player, and Tide's come back into the game.
Yeah.
They're gonna. I don't know. They're gonna have to find something silly with him. Honestly, I think like a Treant offlane would be sick for him, but I don't think anyone's ever.
They've found success with Slardar. Is that so far out of the realm of possibility?
No, I think Slardar's gonna get picked quite a bit in offlane. Mm-hmm. The problem is its win rate over the last month is actually so abysmally low. It's kind of funny. To bring up the CD tournament, he won 1 game out of 12 he was picked.
Without all heroes available to draft.
One. That blew my mind how bad it was. But
All right, so it sounds like we've got a pretty consensus EG and eHome fighting for first and second. Nobody willing to commit to that. And then we've got a real hodgepodge. Third and fourth, guys. I'm pretty sure the games are going to be starting very soon, so that's probably our cue.
No, definitely not going to start soon.
No, Noxville, they're going to start soon. If you pretend that they'll start soon,
TM.
Soon TM is the real key there. Guys, any final thoughts on the Shanghai Major before we close up shop?
I just hope the players get out there and they have a lot of fun. That's what gaming's all about, you know.
Nice.
Beautifully said. I think this. I just hope what we remember about this tournament is just absolutely awesome Dota.
And
because
not
I think
issues. Yeah, that'd be...
I think the scene is in a great place right now. I think there are so many great teams. I think there's so many talented players that deserve recognition on this international stage. I just hope that what we're talking about a week, 2 weeks from now are the plays and the teams and the players.
And not perfect world.
Yeah, I hope it is. I agree. We'll see.
Awesome. Well, Noxville, any final thoughts? Yeah.
I'm pretty glad that my sleep schedule is slowly adjusting to this and that the format is conducive to watching for European people if you have literally nothing else to do and you can adjust your sleep schedule. But I'm very excited to see. I think that this is one of the most open tournaments that we've seen for a while of the major tournaments, or large major premier tournaments.
Yep.
And I think that there's so many winners that this is going to be exciting all the way through. All the games from top 6 onwards are going to be killers.
Yeah, so. I think there are 7 out of the 16 teams that can realistically win this tournament, and that to me is one of the more exciting things. It is a wide open field, and it's going to be amazing.
Obviously, an incredibly exciting weekend of Dota ahead of us. Nahaz, Noxville, Grant, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Your insight is appreciated as always, and I hope we can have you back sometime.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you guys enjoyed the show at home, feel free to throw us a follow, or if you really enjoyed the content, hit us with a subscribe. We got that shiny new subscriber button, and we've got 2 new emotes, Dumpster Fire and Feces Hitting a Fan. Yes, we chose the Arbiters of Chaos in the emote world. So if you want those, go ahead and hit us up for $4.99 a month. It's not a bad deal. If you want to check out the show after the games have started and see all the brilliant predictions from our analysts, check us out at YouTube, youtube.com/daily.esports. Check us out on Facebook, daily.esports, over on Twitter @esports, and I believe that's all of them. I feel sort of like a team player rattling off his sponsors. I've been Even D and Double John Barker. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Play some damn Dota, and we'll leave it to Perfect World to take it away.